jungles of northern Thailand. Hidden behind ancient trees and jagged cliffs was a waterfall known only to locals as Nam Tak Phai, the ghost waterfall. It was said that shadows danced beneath the moonlight, echoes of the past whispering through the mist. But to a group of friends from Bangkok, it was just another adventure, a weekend of camping, laughter, and stories by the fire. They didn't believe in superstitions, not yet. The sun began to dip behind the mountains, casting a golden hue over the lush landscape. The waterfall cascaded down jagged rocks, its roar echoing through the valley, mist rising to catch the last light of day. For friends stood in awe, the adventurous leader Tan, the quiet photographer Ploy, the skeptic who laughed at ghost stories, and Wen, who loved scaring others but never believed his own tales. They set up camp on a flat patch of grass, close enough to hear the soothing roar of the water but far enough to stay dry from the spray. As dusk settled, they gathered around the campfire, its warm glow pushing back the growing shadows. Ploy looked around, a mischievous grin on her face. "So, Wen, no ghost stories this time? I thought this was your thing." Wen laughed, his eyes glinting. "Oh, I have one about this very place." Tan raised an eyebrow. "Really? Here?" Wen leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "They say at night shadows walk by the waterfall, but they're not people. They're spirits trapped here forever searching for a way out." Ploy rolled her eyes. "Nice try, but that's just a tourist story to keep people away." Mai laughed. "Yeah, we're the only ones crazy enough to camp here." The group laughed, their voices echoing off the cliffs, but as darkness fell, the air grew colder, the jungle's whispers growing louder. Tan set his camera up on a tripod, aiming it at the waterfall. "This place is amazing. I'm going to get some great shots tonight." I helped him adjust the lens. "You know, my grandmother once told me a story about this place. She said it was cursed." Ploy groaned. "Not you too, Mai." Mai shrugged, her face serious. "She said the waterfall was once the site of an ancient village during a great war. The villagers hid here, but they were betrayed. They were slaughtered, their bodies thrown into the water. Their spirits could never move on, and now they walk the falls, forever searching for peace." The fire crackled, a cold wind blowing through the trees. Wind shivered but laughed it off. "Great story, but we don't believe in ghosts, right?" Dan smiled, snapping a photo. "Nope, but they'll make great pictures." The camera clicked, its flash illuminating the falls for a split second. As the light faded, a shadow moved by the water's edge. Dan frowned, looking at the screen. "That's weird." He showed the photo to the others. A dark figure stood by the waterfall, its shape hazy like smoke. Ploy laughed. "It's probably just a shadow from the trees." Dan looked back at the falls. "Yeah, probably, but the figure was gone." They felt completely, the jungle coming alive with the sounds of insects and distant animal calls. The fire flickered, casting dancing shadows on the ground. Ploy stood up, stretching. "I'm going to the stream to wash up. Be right back." I nodded. "Don't wander too far." Ploy rolled her eyes. "Relax. I'm not scared of your ghost stories." She grabbed her flashlight and walked towards the water. The sound of the waterfall grew louder, the mist cooling the air. She knelt by the stream, splashing water on her face. As she looked up, her flashlight flickered. She shook it, the light stabilizing, but as it did, her breath caught in her throat. A figure stood across the stream, motionless, watching. It was a man, his body draped in ragged clothes, his face obscured by shadow, his head tilted to one side, eyes hollow and dark. Ploy's heart raced. "Hey, who's there?" The figure didn't move. It stood perfectly still, its head slowly tilting the other way. Ploy's legs felt heavy, her body frozen. "This isn't funny, Wen. Is that you?" The figure's mouth opened, impossibly wide, a silent scream echoing in her mind. Ploy stumbled back, tripping over a rock, her flashlight falling to the ground. The light spun, illuminating the trees, the stream, but the figure was gone. She scrambled to her feet, running back to camp, her heart pounding. As she burst into the clearing, her friends looked up in surprise. My frowned. "Ploy, what happened?" Ploy's face was pale, her body shaking. "I saw someone by the water." Tan's eyes widened. "Someone else is here." Wynn stood up, his face serious for once. "Are you sure?" Ploy nodded, her voice trembling. He was just standing there watching me." The wind howled, rustling the trees. The jungle seemed to close in on them, the shadows growing darker. 10 looked at his camera, flipping through the photos. He froze, his face draining of color. He turned the screen towards them, his hand shaking. Guys, look. The photo showed the waterfall, mist swirling around the rocks. But in the corner, half hidden in the shadows, was the figure. Its face twisted, eyes hollow, mouth open in a silent scream. Ploy gasped, stepping back. That's him, that's who I saw. The air grew cold, the fire flickering dangerously low. Wynn's voice was barely a whisper. But if that's him, then where is he now? A twig snapped behind them. They spun around. Flashlight scanning the darkness. There was nothing there. As the wind carried the mist. Towards them, a whisper echoed through the trees, a voice faint and distant calling their names. The whisper echoed through the trees, faint but unmistakable. It was calling their names. Ploy's face went pale. No, that's impossible. Wynn's bravado faded, his eyes wide. Who's out there? The jungle responded with silence. Only the rustling leaves and the roar of the waterfall broke the eerie stillness. But the air felt heavy, suffocating, as if they were being watched from all directions. Dan's hands trembled as he clutched his. Camera, we should leave, now. I swallowed hard, forcing herself to stay calm. Okay, pack up. We're leaving first thing in the morning. It's too dangerous to hike out at night. The others nodded, relief washing over their faces, but deep down they all felt it, the feeling of unseen eyes, watching them, waiting in the dark. They gathered closer to the campfire, its warmth doing little to chase away the chill that had settled around them. Wynn cleared his throat, his voice low. You remember the story I told earlier, about the shadows by the waterfall? Ploy glared at him. If you're trying to scare us again, don't. Wynn shook his head. I wasn't joking. My grandmother used to tell me about this place. She said it was haunted by the spirits of those who died here, people who were betrayed, who couldn't move on. Dan's eyes widened like the villagers I mentioned. Wynn nodded, his voice trembling. Yeah, but there's more. She said they call out to the living mimic voices to lure people to their deaths. Anyone who answers the call never comes back. Mai's face turned pale. Are you saying those whispers? Wynn looked at her, his expression grim. They weren't human. The cold wind blew through the camp, making the flames flicker. The shadows danced, twisting into shapes that seemed almost human. Ploy hugged herself, shivering. This isn't funny anymore. Stop it, Wynn. Wynn's eyes were serious. I'm not making this up. Branch snapped behind them. They spun around, flashlight scanning the trees. Nothing. Just the darkness pressing in closer. Dan's voice was a whisper. We should go to the tents. Stay together. Until morning, they agreed, moving quickly, huddling in pairs, but the feeling of being watched never left. Inside the tent, Ploy and Mai tried to sleep, but every noise made them jump. The wind howled, the leaves rustling like whispers. Ploy's eyes were wide open, her body tense. Mai, do you hear that? I listened, her heart pounding. A faint voice drifted through the tent, soft and distant, but unmistakable. It was Wynn's voice. Ploy might come out, I need help. Ploy sat up, panic in her eyes. Why is he out there? Didn't he go to his tent? Mai grabbed her arm. Don't answer. Don't go out there. Ploy's body trembled. But what if he's hurt? The voice called again, weaker this time. Help me, please. Mai's grip tightened. No, remember what Wynn said. They mimic voices to lure people out. Ploy's eyes widened in fear. You think it's not him? The voice outside grew distorted, warping into something unnatural. Ploy, come out. Mai covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. The voice was no longer human. It was hollow, echoing, like the sound of the wind through a grave. The tent shook, the air growing colder. Shadows danced outside, circling them. Ploy sobbed, burying her face in her hands. This can't be happening. This isn't real. Mai held her close, her own body shaking. Don't listen, don't look. It can't come in unless we let it. The shadows grew darker, claw-like shapes pressing against the tent fabric. The whispers grew louder, voices overlapping, calling their names. Then, as suddenly as it began, the noise stopped. The shadows vanished. Silence. Ploy lifted her head, her face wet with tears. Did it leave? Mai didn't answer. Her eyes fixed on the tent's zipper. It was moving. Slowly, deliberately, the zipper began to slide down inch by inch. Ploy's breath caught in her throat. No, it can't get in. The zipper stopped halfway, hanging open. Cold air flooded the tent, carrying the scent of damp earth and decay. I stared at the opening, her body frozen. It's not human. A face appeared in the gap, pale and hollow, eyes dark as the night, its mouth stretched into an unnatural grin, teeth sharp and rotting. It whispered, its voice like the rustling leaves. "Come play with me," Ploy screamed. The sun rose slowly, golden light spilling over the mountains. The jungle looked peaceful, bathed in the morning glow. Tan and Win emerged from their tent, exhausted but relieved to see daylight. Win yawned, stretching. "Man, that was the worst night's sleep ever. I kept hearing weird noises." Tan nodded. "Yeah, sounded like someone walking around, but I didn't see anything." They turned to the girl's tent. "Hey, Ploy, my morning," no answer. Win frowned, walking over. He knocked on the fabric. "Hey, wake up." Still nothing. Tan's face grew pale. "Do you think something happened?" Win's hand shook as he unzipped the tent. The flap fell open. Inside, the tent was empty. No sleeping bags, no backpacks, no sign of Ploy or Mai. Tan's voice trembled. "No, they were right here. They couldn't have left without us hearing." Win's eyes widened, panic setting in. "My Ploy." His voice echoed through the trees. Only the waterfall answered, its roar relentless and cold. Tan stumbled back, his face white. No, this can't be happening." His camera beeped, signaling a new photo. Confused, he checked the screen. His hands began to shake. The last photo was taken just before sunrise, then clearly visible into figures standing in front of it. They were identical to Ploy and Mai, their faces blank, eyes dark and hollow, staring at the camera with empty smiles. Win fell to his knees, his body trembling. "No, that's impossible." The wind picked up, carrying a whisper from the waterfall. A voice soft and familiar calling his name. The forest was silent, as if holding its breath. Win stood frozen before the empty tent, his mind refusing to accept what he was seeing. They can't just be gone. Tan gripped his shoulder, his face pale with fear. They didn't just leave. Something took them. Win's eyes widened, his heart racing. No, that's impossible. We were right here. We would have heard. Tan held up his camera with trembling hands, then explained this. Win looked at the screen, his blood turning to ice. The photo showed Ploy and Mai standing in front of the tent, but their faces were wrong. Pale and emotionless, eyes hollow and mouths stretched into unnatural, empty smiles. Win stumbled back, nearly tripping over a rock. That's not them. Tan nodded, his voice shaking. "I know, but then where are they?" A whisper echoed through the trees, faint and mocking. "When Tan come play with us." They spun around, flashlights sweeping the forest. There was no one there, just the shadows dancing between the trees. Tan's voice cracked. "We have to get out of here now." Win's legs felt heavy, his mind reeling. "But what about Ploy and Mai?" The whisper came again, closer this time. "Don't you want to find us?" Win's chest tightened. It was Mai's voice. "Mai, where are you?" Tan grabbed his arm. "No, don't listen. Remember what Win said. They mimic voices." But the voice continued, soft and pleading. "Win, please help me. It's so cold." Win's eyes filled with tears. "No, Mai, I can't leave her." Tan's grip tightened, his eyes desperate. "It's not her. It wants us to follow. It wants us to get lost just like they did." The wind howled, carrying another whisper. This time it was Ploy. "Tan, don't leave me. I'm scared." Tan's face twisted in pain, his resolve crumbling. "No, Ploy, I have to save her." Win shook him, his voice firm. "No, it's lying. We have to get help. We have to get out of here and come back with help." Tan's eyes were wet with tears. "But what if they're still alive?" Win's voice broke. "Then we'll find them, but not like this. Not alone." The whisper grew angry, echoing from all directions. "Don't leave, stay, play with us." The shadows shifted, moving closer. Faces began to form in the darkness, hollow eyes and twisted smiles. The figures looked like Ploy and Mai, but distorted, limbs too long, faces stretched and inhuman. Win backed away, his heart pounding. "Run." They turned and bolted through the forest, branches clawing at them as the shadows gave chase, their laughter echoing through the trees. The jungle seemed to stretch endlessly, the paths twisting and turning in every direction. Win's lungs burned, his legs aching, but he kept running, refusing to look back. Tan was right behind him, his breath ragged. Are they following? When chanced to glance over his shoulder, the shadows were moving faster, their twisted limbs reaching out, faces grinning with malice. Yes, don't stop. The ground was uneven, roots threatening to trip them with every step. But they didn't dare slow down. The air was freezing, the sunlight fading as if the shadows were swallowing the day itself. Wynn's mind raced. The waterfall. If we get to the water, maybe they can't follow. Tan's eyes widen. Right spirits can't cross. Water! They changed direction, heading towards the roaring sound of the waterfall. But the shadows were relentless, closing in from all sides. The voices grew louder, overlapping in a haunting chorus. Stay with us forever. Wynn felt something cold brush against his back. Like skeletal fingers, he yelped, pushing himself faster. We're almost there. The trees parted, revealing the waterfall, majestic and powerful, cascading into a wide, deep pool below. Tan's face broke into a hopeful smile. We made it. But the shadows were right behind them, shapes twisting and contorting, faces snarling with hunger. Wynn didn't hesitate. Jump. They leapt from the edge, plunging into the icy water. The shock took Wynn's breath away, but he forced himself to swim, fighting against the current. He surfaced, gasping, and looked back. The shadows stood at the edge of the water, their faces furious, eyes glowing with hate. The voices screamed, a sound that shattered the air. No, you can't leave, you belong to us. Wynn shivered, his body numb from the cold. He watched as the shadows slowly faded, their forms dissolving into the mist. Tan swam up beside him, his face pale. We made it. Wynn nodded, tears streaming down his face. But Ploy Mai, they looked back at the shore, where two figures stood, watching them, Ploy and Mai. Their faces were blank, eyes hollow, bodies pale as ghosts. They stared with empty smiles, their mouths moving in unison. Come back, stay with us. Tan's body shook, his voice cracking. No, that's not them. Wynn covered his mouth, sobbing. We have to leave. They swam to the other side, pulling themselves onto the rocks. Exhausted and broken, when they looked back, the figures were gone. Only the waterfall remained, roaring endlessly. They made their way back to the trail, limbs heavy with fatigue. Neither spoke, the weight of what they had seen crushing them. As they reached the forest edge, Tan stopped, his face pale. Look. Wynn turned, his blood freezing. On the trees, carved into the bark, were names, hundreds of them, scratched deep into the wood. At the bottom of the list, freshly carved, were to names, Ploy and Mai. Wynn stumbled back, his body shaking. No, this can't be. Tan's eyes filled with tears. They're gone. A cold wind blew through the trees, carrying a whisper that echoed through the valley. Soft familiar calling their names. They turned and ran, never looking back, but the whisper followed them, echoing through the mountains, lingering on the wind, calling them home. Weeks had passed since that horrifying night at the waterfall, but the memories lingered like a curse. Wynn and Tan barely spoke, haunted by the whispers that seemed to follow them, even in their dreams. But guilt is a powerful force. They never found them. Ploy and Mai, their families deserve to know, Tan whispered, his eyes hollow and tired. Wynn swallowed hard, his throat dry. I know, but if we go back. Tan's gaze was firm, though fear flickered behind his eyes. We owe them the truth, even if his voice cracked, even if they're no longer human. Wynn shivered, the memory of those empty smiles flashing through his mind. All right, we go back, but this time we're prepared. They returned to the mountain, armed with offerings, blessed talismans, and courage laced with terror. The locals had warned them, spirits there, they are not kind. They do not forgive trespassers. But the mountain was silent as they hiked back to the cursed clearing. The waterfall roared in the distance, a haunting reminder of the night that changed everything. Air grew colder as they approached the campsite, now abandoned and overgrown. Their tents lay shredded, belongings scattered as if by wild animals. Wynn's chest tightened. This is where they were taken. Tan placed the offerings, food, incense, and flowers on the ground, hands trembling. I hope this brings them peace. As the incense smoke curled into the sky, the forest grew silent. No birds, no insects, just the whispering wind. Then the shadows moved. From behind the trees, two figures emerged, Ploy and Mai. Their faces were pale, eyes empty, limbs twisted unnaturally. But they weren't alone. Dark shapes lingered behind them, faces contorted with malice, eyes glowing with hunger. Wen's heart raced. Ploy mine. The figures stepped forward, their mouths moving in unison. Voices hollow. Why did you leave us? Tan's knees buckled. We tried to save you. Their faces twisted into something horrible, smiles stretching to wide. You left us to die. The shadows behind them moved closer, whispers echoing through the trees. Wen backed away, panic rising. No, we didn't. We were trying to get help. Ploy and Mai's voices grew louder, overlapping. Liar. You ran, you left us. The shadows surged forward, faces flickering, other hikers, other victims. All with the same hollow eyes and twisted smiles. Dan screamed, no, stay away. The shadows laughed, the sound cold and mocking. You will join us. The forest twisted around them, paths disappearing as the shadows closed in. Wen and Tan ran. But every direction led them back to the clearing, back to the waterfall. The shadows circled them, faces flickering in and out of the darkness. Ploy and Mai stood at the center, their eyes hollow, faces emotionless. Wen's body shook. Please let them go, the shadows hissed, voices echoing from every direction. They belong to us and now so do you. The air grew cold, the ground shifting beneath their feet. Wen stumbled, falling to his knees. No, this can't be happening. Tan dropped the incense, his voice desperate. We brought offerings. We're sorry. We didn't mean to trespass. The shadows laughed, the sound echoing through the forest. It's too late. You heard the call. You followed. You are ours. The ground opened beneath them, darkness swirling like smoke. Hands reached up, cold and skeletal, pulling at their legs. Wen screamed, clawing at the dirt. No, let us go. But the shadows were relentless, pulling them down, their faces twisted with rage. Stay with us forever. Ploy and Mai's faces flickered, their eyes momentarily soft, mouths moving silently. Help us. Then they were gone, swallowed by the darkness. Wen's vision blurred, cold hands wrapping around his body, pulling him into the earth. The last thing he heard was Tan's voice screaming his name before the shadows consumed them both. Days later, the locals found the campsite, the belongings untouched, the tent shredded. But there was no sign of Wen or Tan. Only the waterfall remained, roaring endlessly, echoing through the valley. On the trees, the new names were carved deep into the bark. Wen and Tan. The wind blew softly, carrying faint whispers through the forest, voices that echoed through the mountains, calling out to anyone who would listen. Soft, familiar pleading, help us, don't leave us here, but no one dared to answer, for the shadows were waiting.